Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Cobb's Corner. We are back, and I made it out here to sunny Micronesia, Chuk State in the Federated States of Micronesia. So I'm in the South Pacific. It is currently 8 a.m. over here. So good morning to my listeners in East Asia, Oceania, Australia. Good morning. Thank you for waking up early with us. To my listeners back in the States, to my listeners back home in Connecticut on the East Coast, good evening. I realize it's about 6 o'clock at night over there. To my listeners on the West Coast, good afternoon. Thank you for tuning in. And tuning into what will be a new recurring segment, a new weekly talk show called Talk Time with Morgan Cobbs. You probably seen me post about it a bit on Instagram, and we're here. Yeah, Talk Time with Morgan Cobbs. We're going to be giving you kind of just going to talk about life, really. I mean, I know. I say like Cobb's Corner will be like the one-stop shop for all things TV, film, and pop culture, and that is still true. But we'll occasionally go outside of that bubble of the entertainment world and the zeitgeist. Talk about other things. The things that have, happened in my life because, life happens off mic, off camera. So that's what we'll be getting into today. So, as I mentioned before, I have arrived in Micronesia. If you, to my, I guess, listeners who actually listen to my podcast, I posted a bonus episode before I left the States a few maybe like 2 weeks ago, and it said special announcement, and I had said how I was leaving the United States, how this would be my last recording in the United States for a while. All right, not my last recording in the United States like ever, but it'd be my last recording in the States for a while. And that I'd be going to teach overseas. I'm teaching here I'm at Xavier High School in Micronesia. Xavier, that's Xavier, Xavier High School in Micronesia. I actually start teaching on Tuesday. And yeah, I've been living in Micronesia here about 2 weeks now, and the first couple of days took some adjusting to the weather. The weather's pretty consistent. It's actually a really, really beautiful day outside today. Well, you guys can't see, but I can. I'm just looking out the window, looking out the window and the door. I'm in the library right now in the conference room. So adjusting to the weather, it's usually either sunny or raining. Those are kind of the two modes. Like it's either hot and sunny or it's kind of coolish and raining. Temperatures usually doesn't drop below maybe like 70 degrees, like 65 Fahrenheit, and that's Fahrenheit, not Celsius. Yeah, usually doesn't go below like 65, and it really hasn't been in like the 90s or like or the 100 degree. It's been primarily in like the 70s and 80s temperature wise. So it's actually really nice. Nice weather. Only get 12 hours of sunlight though. In Micronesia, they don't observe daylight saving time because we're like so close to the equator. The sun usually rises. Sun usually rises around 6 a.m. and then sets around 6 p.m. And that's usually pretty consistent. So yeah, that's life in Micronesia. Oh, and I forgot to mention, Talk Time with Morgan Cobbs. We're currently live streaming on YouTube right now, and for the foreseeable future, we will be doing these live streams on YouTube and not Twitch, because Twitch was being really, really difficult earlier when I was trying to log in and I just couldn't. So oh yeah, and the Wi-Fi connection as well. I am currently connected to the Wi-Fi, but hopefully the signal doesn't go out. One of the really big shops, or really big, I guess, places here in Chuk. Oh, and the name of the island is Weno, Weno, that I'm on. Weno, in the state of Chuk, in the Federated States of Micronesia, the FSM. The main place that I've gone to is Ace Hardware. It is Ace Hardware, which is a place that I know exists back in the States, and I just never really went to Ace back home. Like I'd always hear the jingle, and Ace is the place with the helpful hardware, folks. But I've been there several times since arriving here in Micronesia. They sell a little bit of everything. They have to sell a little bit of everything out there. And yeah, and yeah. So I mean, adjusting a Chuk, it's been a bit humid. I mean, it's my first time, I guess, living in a developing country. So some adjustments, some differences. The FSM is a former U.S. trust territory. They were part of, well, they were a U.S. Trust territory following the Second World War. I think they were under like the United Nations jurisdiction or whatever, and then became a U.S. trust territory. That was from maybe like 1945 up until like 1986. 1986, they signed their independence charter, became part of the U.S. Compact of Free Association, along with Palau and the Marshall Islands, where under the Compact of Free Association, COFA, Micronesian citizens and U.S. citizens are allowed to live and work in each other's countries without visas. So I was able to come here as a U.S. citizen. I was able to come here to Micronesia without a visa. All I needed was a valid passport. And to all my listeners in the States, you can just as easily come and visit Micronesia without a visa. You can come here, stay here indefinitely. It's a really, really beautiful place, beautiful country. I think Micronesians are allowed to serve in the U.S. military, and yeah, actually this year, well, the compact, the first compact of free association was signed in 1986, and I think it was for like 15 years, but then they were given like a 3-year like buffer period. It's like 1986 to 2001, and then 2004, the compact was renewed for another 20 years. So this year, 2023, this is actually one of the compact renewal years to kind of renegotiate the terms and like foreign aid. Like we actually get, like in Micronesia, they actually get a decent amount of like foreign aid from the United States, but also from Australia, from China, from India. So yeah, like as a part of the COFA, you have a bit more autonomy, and but I'm sure there's like a ton of other like YouTube videos. I recommend Geography Now. Geography Now, they did an episode a number of years ago about Micronesia, about the Federated States of Micronesia, and like the geographic region of the Pacific Ocean called Micronesia, which is made up of the FSM, along with the Marshall Islands, Palau, and Guam. They're all part of Micronesia. Then there's Polynesia and Melanesia. Melanesia is, I think, like Samoa, Fiji, Polynesia, I'm not sure. But Geography Now, highly recommend that YouTube channel. They go way in depth on Micronesia and like Micronesian culture and fashion and all that. The hat I'm wearing, you probably I don't think I've worn this hat on camera before, but you might have seen this hat in some of my TikToks and Instagram reels. The hat I'm wearing, I got this hat in Detroit. I was in Detroit a month ago, visiting some folks, and I was at a sneaker exchange. I actually have another hat. Oh, and shout out to my listeners in Detroit, my listeners in Michigan. Yeah, this hat is from the Michigan, uh, the Michigan Sneaker Exchange Conference, the MSXC. It's like a big sneaker exchange conference where sell people would sell they sell sneakers, they sell clothes, sell artwork, you know. So yeah, I was in Detroit for that. I went over to there's a clothing company, Vintage 1701, either Vintage 1701 or 1701 Vintage. I think it's Vintage 1701, and they have this hat, this Make Black Wall Street Great Again hat. I also got a shirt. For those of you who don't know, Black Wall Street was a thriving black town. It was an all black town, all black businesses, all black, businesses, restaurants, pretty much an all black town that was pretty much self sufficient. And it was bombed. It's an American city that was bombed by the US government because Black Wall Street, Tulsa, Oklahoma, right? The city of Tulsa, Oklahoma. They were ready to compete with the United States on the open market. Other countries had found out about Tulsa, Oklahoma. So Tulsa was a thriving black town, nicknamed Black Wall Street. I think probably see 1921. Yep, 1921. That was the year that Black Wall Street was bombed. So yeah, make Black Wall Street great again. It's a call to action for all of you. Let's make Black Wall Street great again. 1701, that's the year that Detroit was founded. Hence the title of the clothing company, Vintage 1701. And yeah, Vintage 1701. They even had a shirt that said Midnight. Midnight was the code name given to Detroit during the Underground Railroad. Midnight was the code name for the city of Detroit, which is actually just over the U.S.-Canadian border. Detroit's the only American city where you could actually drive south into Canada. Like there's a road that you could take. I remember we were driving on this one road. It's like the two right lanes will take you to Canada. We'll take you to this tunnel that'll take you across the border, or across the bridge. Shout out to my listeners in Canada. The city of Winston. Windsor. I keep saying Winston. Windsor, Connecticut. Windsor, Canada. God, it's really, really early in the morning, guys. Bear with me. Windsor, Canada is just over the border, between Detroit and Canada, just over whatever that Great Lake is. My U.S. geography is not what it was. But yeah, I also got another shirt from Lost World Club. Shout out to Lost World Club. It's another kind of up and coming clothing brand. Lost World Club. I got one of their hoodies. I got one of their shirts. Vintage 1701. I got a hat and I got a T-shirt. Maybe I'll wear it during one of the live streams. But yeah, that was my trip to Detroit. Only American city where you can drive south into Canada. And I got to tell you, like I had a flight to well, I had a couple of flight fiascos recently. My flight from Detroit. All right, got two stories to tell. My flight from Detroit was I was only supposed to be there for the weekend. I was supposed to leave. Yeah, I was supposed to leave on that Sunday. I was supposed to go back to Connecticut that Sunday. My flight ended up getting delayed until I think it was Tuesday. So I ended up staying an extra 2 days. I ended up staying Sunday and Monday, and the flight left Tuesday morning. Now, this flight, it was Delta Airlines, but I think it was one of their affiliates. Now, y'all got to understand, I am 6'1", all right? Average height for men in America over the age of 20 is 5'9". Average height for women in America is 5'4". So, by national standards, I'm considered tall, all right, in the United States. You know, I'm considered tall. This flight, this tiny flight, it was a teeny tiny airplane. Okay, my head was hitting the ceiling. All right, get on this flight, get in this tiny seat. There's no Wi-Fi on the plane, or you got to pay for the Wi-Fi. All right, I'm already having to pack myself in this tiny little seat like a sardine. All right, got this whole instructional video, and fasten your seatbelts and all that. At one point during the flight, I think I got up to use the bathroom, but I couldn't fit inside the bathroom. So I just went back and sat down. So yeah, we're flying from Detroit to JFK, to JFK International Airport in Queens, New York, which is the main airport that I fly out of. I think of the airports that I've flown out of JFK the most. I think, yeah, because I definitely flown out of JFK the most. I've flown out of JFK. I've flown out of LaGuardia probably like one time. I flew out of Bradley International Airport in Hartford, which is actually the closest airport to where I live. I've only flown out of there maybe one time. Flew out of Westchester once when I was like 7. Westchester Airport, White Plains. I recently flew out of Newark for the very first time, which I'll get to in a second. But as we're flying back to JFK, apparently there was some storm. There's some heavy storm at JFK, so the airport was shut down. No planes were allowed to take off or land at JFK Airport. And at the time of this announcement, we're maybe over Pennsylvania. So we ended up having to get grounded in Allentown, Pennsylvania. All right. Now, shout out to any of my listeners in Pennsylvania, any of my listeners in Allentown. I think I was in Allentown for like a karate tournament when I was like 9 years old. I was maybe 9 years old. Allentown Airport, it's actually a really nice airport. It's a small airport, but it's actually really nice. So it was a really nice airport. We had to get grounded. I was able to go over to the Dunkin' Donuts there, get me a sandwich, get me a Starry lemon lime soda. But yeah, we were grounded there for at least 2 hours, at least like two hours, because and I recognize that it's nobody's fault. Weather happens. None of us have any control over the weather. So we get grounded in Allentown, Pennsylvania, and a bunch of the other passengers were really just kind of unruly and upset. Once I'm able to connect to Wi-Fi, I kind of text my folks hey, I'm grounded in Allentown. I'm not sure what time I'll be back in JFK. I'll keep you updated. I ended up sitting and downloading at the time, there were only 3 episodes to My Adventures with Superman. the animated series on Max. I downloaded all 3 of those episodes and pretty much watched all 3 of them because I figured like, we'll be in. I figured, we'll be in the air within the hour. Let me download all 3 of these episodes because I know there's no Wi-Fi on the plane, so I was kind of planning ahead. I ended up sitting and just watching all 3 of the episodes at the airport. So, ended up watching all 3 of the episodes at the airport on my own. So yeah, and it was a really, really nice airport. But once they said like, we will be able to board at 4:30. And it's like, hooray. The bad news is we can't take off till 5:45. Oh my goodness. So anyway, we reboard the plane. We get the same safety information demonstration, same information demonstration, Mojo Dojo Casa House. Yeah. The same demo that they do on every flight. And we eventually take off. And I ended up watching an entire movie. I watched The Pursuit of Happiness. The rest of the flight, we were in the air less than an hour. We were only in the air maybe another like 45 minutes. Because I also realized the rule is that they have to sort of wait. I think it's like 30 minutes after the last like boom of thunder to actually let any planes in. So, there's air traffic control and regulations and all that, keeping everybody safe. But we make it back to JFK Airport. I'm able to, but we land and then they don't let us off, and then they finally let us off. We must have been on the ground like a half an hour, and they finally let us off, and I'm able to find my Uber. I Uber back to Connecticut. Uber from JFK Airport to the Bridgeport train station. My folks come and pick me up, and that was my trip to Detroit. Pretty eventful trip. Pretty eventful. The flight up there, the flight back. Oh, and the flight back didn't have TVs. The flight up had TVs. The flight to Detroit had TVs. The flight back from Detroit did not have TVs, which is why I think it wasn't really Delta Airlines. I think it was one of their affiliates that we flew with. Yeah, must have been one of their affiliates. But, So, moral of the story is do not fly Delta Airlines. Yeah. Yeah, moral of the story is don't fly Delta Airlines, guys. Okay? Don't do what I did. Fast forward to about 2 weeks ago. Let's see. I flew out for Micronesia. I left on August 5th. We drove to Newark International Airport. It took us about 3 hours to get there. Even though it was a Saturday, and even though it was like a Saturday morning when we left, my flight was about like 3:30. We left home around 10 o'clock, 10:15. And yeah, we left. We drove from Connecticut to New York to Newark. I had to use the bathroom the whole time, but I didn't want to stop. So we get to the airport, finally get my luggage onto a cart. My dad goes in with me. I told him to watch my luggage. I have to run to go to the bathroom. And I knew ahead of time that, I knew ahead of time that I was going to have to pay extra for my luggage because both my bags were overweight. My smallest suitcase was over 50 pounds. So I had to pay $200 for the smaller suitcase. That had all like my toiletries and toiletries, some clothes. But yeah, that was $200 for that. Then for my bigger suitcase, I have a big black suitcase where most of my clothes were in the big black suitcase. I That one was over 75 pounds. So for that one, I had to pay $400. So in total, that's $600 just to get both my bags on the plane to Chuk. Well, I had them tagged to Chuk. All right. So both bags get on the plane in Newark. I get on the plane and I get on my first flight from Newark to San Francisco. No problem. Newark to San Francisco, about 6 hours. I've been to the West Coast before, so my brain can kind of switch back and forth between like New York and like California time. Like it's only a three hour time zone difference, and plus I've been to California numerous times over the last like 12 years. So because I used to have family out there, so just the back and forth between like New York and California once a year. When I was in like middle school. So yeah, I've been able to sort of easily adjust. Like all I need is maybe 24 hours in California. Like that's what I needed when I went to the NESB conference. Shout out to NESB. I went to NESB 48. Yeah, it was NESB 48. This was last year. It's 2022. NESB 48 I went to in Anaheim, California. So I went there, and then I told the rest of my chapter, you guys go to the opening session. I'm going to go to sleep. Yeah. Again, all I need is 24 hours in a new time zone. Well, 24 hours specifically in California, specifically in the West Coast, whether if it's, Seattle, whether if it's Washington State or California, Western time zone, 3 hours behind New York. Give me 24 hours, I'll be right as rain. It was about a 6 hour flight. I watched 3 movies. I was going to try and watch all 4 John Wick movies. I ended up only watching John Wick's 1 and 2. In my opinion, 4 was the best. 4 outdid all of them. All right. 4 outdid all of them. John Wick, the first one, I put that one as second best, second only to John Wick Chapter 4. 4 for me, my rankings, I go 4, 1, 3, Chapter 3, Parabellum. Chapter 3, Parabellum, better than Chapter 2, not as good as Chapter 1. And then Chapter 2, for me, is the weakest one. For me, Chapter 2, I mean, it had a confusing, confusing-ish plot, like the whole, the Santino, Santino, it's like his father dies, and then his father willed his high table seat to his sister, so then he tells John Wick to go kill his sister. Sister ends up, killing herself, and then Santino pretty much sends his entire army after John Wick to avenge the death of his sister, even though he's the one who told Wick to kill his sister in the first place, and the whole blood oath. Okay. So yeah, there's that, and I think the first act is solid. The first act is pretty solid. The first act kind of follows up on. It's kind of a follow up to the first John Wick. Follow up to some like the promise for more John Wick at the end of the first John Wick film, which is crazy. What's crazy is that John Wick came out 9 years ago. That Keanu Reeves has been playing this character of John Wick almost 10 years. Well, you figure they were probably in production in 2013. So yeah, 10 years. For me, chapter 2, it's just the first act's pretty solid. The second act starts to slow down. The pacing literally slows down. Everything stops in the middle of the second act. Everybody literally sits down. There's that scene at the bar. Everybody just sits down and stops. And I feel like a lot of sequels fall into that trap. Solid opening act, but then the pacing slows down in the second act. and then, but then everything speeds up again in Act 3. I always say that with Chapter 2 and Chapter 3, it's the reverse of Empire Strikes Back. Like, Empire Strikes Back is better than Return of the Jedi. Even though at the end of Empire Strikes Back, Return of the Jedi is coming. There's a follow-up coming. But for me, Return of the Jedi is not as good as Empire Strikes Back. It's a good movie. It's just not Empire Strikes Back. But with John Wick, it's the opposite. I feel like Chapter 3, the follow-up to Chapter 2, because Chapter 2 ends, Chapter 3. Chapter 3 starts right when Chapter 2 ends. But the follow-up to Chapter 2 was better than Chapter 2 itself, in my opinion. That was my John Wick rant for the day. I ended up watching John Wick's 1 and 2, and then I realized that there was only like 2 hours left in the flight, because on the TVs, you can kind of track like how much flight time you have left. And with the 2 hours that were left, I watched Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse. I still don't know if I would put Into the Spider-Verse above Across the Spider-Verse or not. I'm still not 100% sure which I would rank higher. But that was my flight from New Jersey to California. And I got to San Francisco. We landed in San Francisco, and it was a tight layover. The layover was only about 54 minutes, so less than an hour layover. We landed in San Francisco, and I have another flight after this one from San Francisco to Hawaii. And they said, like, anybody who has the tight layover to Hawaii can exit the plane first. Like, they let us all get off before everybody else. I get off the plane, get some food that I ended up having to get to go, and board the flight. But I have the United app. The United app said something about like your luggage was separated. So I get to San Francisco Airport. SFO is really, really nice airport. Like, I really forgot about how nice of an airport. It's probably one of the nicest airports I've been in. San Francisco International Airport. I think it's international. SFO is one of the nicest airports ever. I think I might have flown back from California. Been visiting family in Oakland, but then flew back to JFK from San Francisco, I think, like 10 years ago. So yeah, it's a really, really nice airport. Shout out to my listeners. Shout out to my listeners in the state of California. Salute. Specifically San Francisco. Yeah. Beautiful city. I haven't been there in about 9 years though. Yeah, it's been about 9 years since I've been to San Francisco. So yeah, been a hot minute. But yeah, that layover, I think that's where the luggage got separated, because you got to understand, these are two very, very large pieces of luggage. They even have like the heavy tags, on the tag it said heavy. So my big black suitcase, and I kept the luggage tags. I had all these boarding passes as well. Kept the luggage tags. The big black suitcase gets loaded onto the next plane. I know that it was my smaller suitcase, the one that was over 50 pounds. That one, I think, got either held in San Francisco or was put on like the next flight out to Hawaii. So I get on the next plane to Hawaii. It's a bit crammed. I actually end up going to sleep on the plane. I go to sleep on the plane. And yeah, I end up sleeping on the plane. We arrive in Honolulu, HNL. I end up staying at the hotel that's at the airport, and I meet up with the three other teachers. I meet up with the three other teachers that would be joining me in Micronesia. Some of us, like myself, are doing 2 years. Others are doing only 1 year. I'm doing 2 years, so I met up with the three of them. Go to the hotel room, got some sleep, woke up the next morning, took a shower. We had like a 7 a.m. flight out of Honolulu. That's another nice airport. Honolulu is a nice airport. We got on. It's called an island hopper. It's a plane that stops at that. A plane that like makes multiple stops. Same flight, but makes multiple stops throughout the islands. So the first leg of our trip was from Honolulu to the Marshall Islands, because there were a bunch of people on this island hopper that were headed to the Marshall Islands. And there's actually a large Marshallese population in Arkansas. So shout out to Arkansas. Shout out to the Marshallese population in Arkansas. Actually, one of the ladies sitting next to me, she was Marshallese, but she was from Arkansas. She was coming from Arkansas. So we stopped in Marshall Islands. Everybody got off the plane, and we get back on, and I was pretty much I was able to sit in economy plus. Like I just sat in economy plus that time, I think. Yeah. And because the airplane was like not even half full. Like I feel like the three other teachers and I were like the only ones who had gotten back on the plane. Like everybody was headed to the Marshall Islands. We're the only ones headed to like Chuuk. So we get back on the plane. I'm able to sit in economy plus. Hooray. We got to watch the same instructional video from United for the 25th time. All right. For the 25,000th time. We got to watch this instructional video on airport safety. And they're playing Rhapsody in Blue, which I know was composed by George Gershwin. I played an arrangement of it in high school. If I'm not mistaken, I thought Rhapsody in Blue was the theme song of Delta Airlines, but I guess it's the theme of United now, or I don't know. United employees, feel free to, Delta or United Airlines employees, feel free to critique me. But wow, it's been like 38 minutes. I haven't talked about like any like TV, film, or pop culture that's current. So where was I? We leave the Marshall Islands. We head over to Pohnpei, which is a different island state in the FSM. So Pohnpei, now we are in the FSM. Pohnpei, that's where the capital is. Yep, the capital city is in the state of Pohnpei. And I think Pohnpei, that is where I think there's only like 2 international airports in the FSM. One of them is on Pohnpei. The other one is here in Chuuk. So we get off in Pohnpei, and then a bunch of people get on. I have to actually go back to my real seat. I got to sit in economy again, and I think all the people who got on in Pohnpei were headed to Guam, because that's the final destination of the island hopper. So we get off the plane in Pohnpei, we get back on, and then we fly to Chuuk. Yep, we fly to Chuuk. We arrived. I think it was already Monday, August 7th, because again, international date line. So really Hawaii, this was my first time going west of California. I mean, first time going west of California. I think Hawaii's like either 4 or 5 hours behind New York. Yeah, about 4 or 5 hours behind East Coast time. So yeah, we make it to Chuk, and I'm the only one who leaves the airport with at least one of my luggages. The big black bag, the big one. That's the only one that's here. And even when I got on the plane in Hawaii, I showed them 2 luggage tags, and they said we only have one of your bags. So I knew that the other bag was MIA. So I at least have the majority of my clothes with me. And I get to Chuk. We have someone pick us up at the airport, and we stop at, but because our luggage is missing, we end up getting a bunch of vouchers from United. I bought this shirt with one of those $100 vouchers. They give you like $100 for every day that your luggage is missing. I bought this shirt that I'm wearing now with one of those United vouchers. So thank you, United. Well, thanks for the vouchers, but no thank you for losing my luggage, United Airlines. So yeah, that was the whole luggage fiasco. The next couple of days, we just went to different shops and bought stuff, toiletries, because the other 3 teachers, the other 3, they didn't have any of their luggage. The other 3 didn't have any luggage. So really, I was kind of the fortunate one who actually had one of 2 suitcases. They didn't have any, unfortunately. So, but yeah, we made it through. We pushed through. And just last week, Saturday, Saturday here was probably Friday back in the States. We go to United, and they have our luggage. We go to Chuk International Airport, and we were able to get our luggage. So I got both my suitcases now. Everybody's got their luggage now. But man, I will probably never fly United ever again. Yeah. Luggage. I think just yesterday or two days ago, Friday, I had posted on my Instagram story a question like, what are your most ridiculous, what are your craziest flight experiences? Craziest flight experiences, craziest flight stories. Maybe once this is actually uploaded to YouTube, I'll make it a pinned comment. I'll let you guys comment down below, like craziest flight stories, and yeah. So yeah, I've had 2 flight fiascos in the past 2 months. My flight to Detroit, my flight coming into Chuk. So another adjustment to life in Micronesia: there is no movie theater on this island. I think the nearest movie theater is probably Guam or Pohnpei, either Guam, Pohnpei, maybe Palau, but I have to take a plane essentially to go to see a movie in theaters. So my reviews of like current movies is probably going to slow down a bit. I'm probably going to be, what I'm going to end up doing, I know Blue Beetle just came out. 2 days ago, just came out Friday. And I've heard really good things about it. I was actually literally just before going live, I was watching Variant Comics. Shout out to Variant Comics, Ares Quinones. I was listening to his podcast on YouTube where he gives a spoiler-free review of Blue Beetle. On Tuesday is when the spoiler-filled review will be on Tuesday. So what I'm probably going to be doing for the foreseeable future is waiting until these, recent movies, and I'm probably going to have to avoid spoilers on my own, waiting until they are available for rent or purchase. Because I realize a lot of times if a movie's maybe still in theaters, you can rent it for like $20 on YouTube or on Amazon Prime, and probably do the in-home rental, the in-theater rental, movies that are still in theaters, but you can rent them now. So once these movies are available to rent, I will rent them, I will watch them, and I will review them. So I might be a month behind everybody else back in the West. And I'll probably take this time to review some classic films, some older films. Yeah. Yep. Take the time to review some older films, some classic films, And I'm going to do my best to keep this talk show going, keep Talk Time with Morgan Cobbs going, and have guests on whenever I can. Yeah, whenever I can, I want to have guests on Talk Time. But I'm not going to have an official uploading schedule for the actual episodes. The episodes, like when I review movies, that schedule is non-existent. I'll upload whenever I can. You got to understand, like, this is I'm teaching now. This is a full-time position, so I don't know if I'm ever going to have another official schedule. Because like I know I said, Fridays at 10 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. Like, that's not the official schedule anymore, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to have a schedule like that ever again. Who knows? But at least for like the next year, because I will be going back to the States for the summer. So yeah, I'll be able to go back to the States during the summer. I might have an uploading schedule then, but who knows? This is officially out of college. It's my first adult decision, first adult job outside of school. Now that I've got my degree. All right. Well, I've been rambling for almost an hour. I think I should talk a little bit about the movies. As you guys know, the summer is almost over. At least here in Chuk, it's already Sunday. August 20th. So we actually start school on Tuesday. Yeah, on Tuesday we start school, and Tuesday we start school. I know for the college students, for the grade school students listening, you guys are probably starting school. Maybe not this week, but next week or week after next. So within the next 2 weeks, most of you will be going back to school. Now, regardless of where you're listening from, most of you who are school age will be going back to school within the next 2 weeks. So the summer box office is kind of winding down, coming to an end. I will say, though, some of my favorite movies that I've seen this summer. I saw Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 in theaters opening weekend. It came out May 5th. I graduated from UB on May 6th. I saw it that same day. Loved it. Saw it in IMAX 3D. It is now on Disney Plus. I'll be rewatching it at some point. At some point, I will be rewatching that movie soon. I'll let you guys know my thoughts on it. After rewatching, I got to rewatch that, and I got to rewatch Ant-Man and the Wasp: Quantumania. But Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is one of the better Marvel movies that we've gotten in a long time. Like the past 4 years, past 4 years. It's crazy. Avengers Endgame came out 4 years ago, guys. 2019 was 4 years ago. Let that sink in. in the 4 years since Avengers Endgame, Marvel hasn't been all that great. It's been kind of mid. I liked WandaVision. I liked Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm looking forward to Captain America: Brave New World. I love Loki season one. What If season one, Hawkeye. Those are all good shows, but that's 5 shows in a single year, and 4 movies. Black Widow was kind of a filler movie. I liked Black Widow. I liked it as a movie, and I'm like, okay, yep. Now Marvel's back at the box office, like semi in COVID mode. I mean, it was July 2021. The first wave of COVID had come and gone. But we were still kind of in COVID mode ish. But movie theaters started to come back. So we didn't really have a summer box. It was the first year since 2019 that we've actually had a summer box office. But Black Widow, solid spy thriller. That's all I'll say about that. Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings, in my opinion, probably the best movie of Phase 4. All right. I liked it. It was a nice origin story movie. Completely new character. Completely new origin story, starting from scratch. Simu Liu, Aquafina. Can't wait for the sequel. Eternals. Terrible movie. Can't make heads or tails of it. It's like I have to force myself to sit. I had to sit and force myself to subject myself to such torture. All right. To produce content. Anyone who's viewing this live, I see you. Salute. Then we had Spider-Man: No Way Home. I liked it. Yep, Spider-Man: No Way Home. Actually, correction, No Way Home was the best film of Phase 4. 2022, the string of Marvel content from 2022 was kind of mid. Moon Knight, I liked it more the second time I watched it, not so much the first time. Moon Knight, Miss Marvel. Miss Marvel had its production issues behind the scenes, but I still think it was a fun show, kind of. Introducing Kamala Khan, and what are the shows? Oh, well, She-Hulk, in my opinion, the worst Marvel series. Yeah, She-Hulk was, in my opinion, the just worst Marvel series. Trying to think what other movies came out. Phase 4. Black Panther: Wakanda Forever. Solid movie. I know I missed some. But point is, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, one of the better Marvel movies that we've gotten post-Endgame. So that was in May. Fast X. Fast X. I'm really looking forward to the Hobbs standalone film. I think that there's a ton of stories that they can tell with this franchise without the need for Dom to be there. Like, after Furious 7, the franchise has been too focused on Dom, too focused on Dominic Toretto. Like, literally, F9 and Fast X, kind of similar plot. It's like somebody from Dom's past who wants revenge, and this time it's personal, so he's got to assemble the team. And yeah, it's like, yeah, it's gotten kind of repetitive at this point, and it's like, how many times can you like tell the same story over and over again? Not saying I didn't like Fast X, right? Not saying I didn't like F9 was the first movie I saw in theaters that I had seen in theaters since the pandemic. I saw it July 2nd. Came out June 25th, 2021. I saw it July 2nd. I saw it the following Friday. I liked F9. I'm glad I saw it in theaters. Same goes for Fast X. It had one of the most confusing movie endings ever because I don't really know where they're going to go from there. At some point, I'll be rewatching that movie and maybe reviewing it. Who knows? But we did get confirmation that The Rock is coming back. The Rock has confirmed it on his Instagram. Whatever the feud that he had with Vin Diesel the past, 5-6 years, the two of them have apologized. They've moved on. Hobbs is coming back into the franchise. I think maybe it was Hobbs' absence from 9 and 10. That's what kind of threw it off. There's nobody to kind of balance out the masculine energy in the film. There's nobody to kind of balance things out. So I think that's why F9 and Fast X were kind of Dom driven and kind of B tier action films. Looking forward to the Hobbs standalone film. Looking forward to the grand finale. It's all coming together. It's all coming together for one big grand finale. So that's what I'm looking forward to. What else did I see this summer? This summer I also saw The Flash. Again, it's kind of a popcorn movie. I definitely think that Warner Bros. Is going to end up recasting someone else to play the Flash going forward, given Ezra Miller's controversy. To be honest, I didn't even think that they were going to promote this movie as heavily as they did. What got me out to go see it in theaters was Michael Keaton as Batman, just because, Michael Keaton as Batman. If you know, you know. So yeah, that's what got me out to go see it in theaters. Overall, it was okay as a film. I give it like a solid 7 out of 10. 7 out of 10, just because I don't know, the pacing's a bit off. The story's not as easy to follow at times. So, but overall, I think it was a good film. Wasn't great, wasn't terrible, just good. It is based off Flashpoint, but that is The Flash. And I think I only saw maybe 2 other films in theaters this summer. I saw Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny, which I'm going to have to watch that movie again because, I saw it late at night and I think I just fell asleep. I saw it at 9 o'clock and pretty sure I fell asleep here and there. And yeah, I just fell asleep. I just wasn't really that into it. Harrison Ford's old. He's 80 years old now. He's even said that he's in the sunset of his career. I'm hoping this is the last Indiana Jones movie. I'm hoping, Ford has even said that he doesn't want anyone to replace him as Indiana Jones. He wants the role to die with him. So I think we honor his wish and we do not try to reinvent the wheel. Don't try and recast somebody else to play young Indiana Jones no. I think we just leave this role alone, let the role die with him. Don't try to, CGI Harrison Ford and using his likeness. This is why there's a writer's strike going on right now, folks. I think this is only the beginning. There's going to need to be some industry regulations on AI and using somebody's likeness, whether they're dead or alive, and their estate. And so yeah, this is going to be more to come on that. SAG-AFTRA, WGA strike that's going on. And I can only imagine what kind of effect it's having on the U.S. economy right now. I'm not there to experience it. I'm halfway around the world, but um, yeah, I'd have to watch it again. But like from what I did see, it was. I think on Letterboxd I gave it like a 2.5 out of 5 stars or something. Like, yeah, it's just I don't know, cheap laughs, a lot of recycled jokes, recycled material from like the earlier films. They brought back Sala. They should have brought back Short Round. They should have brought back Ki Hui Kwan. All right, who played Short Round in Indiana Jones and the Temple of Doom. They should have brought him back because Ki Hui Kwan was recently in Everything Everywhere All at Once, and he got an Oscar. So I feel like he's got the star power. They should have brought back like all the major characters from like the previous films. Go all out. In my opinion, it was not as bad as Kingdom of the Crystal Skull. Kingdom of the Crystal Skull was just why. Indy's got a son now. Aliens have existed this whole time. Like what? Yeah, there's more problems with Dial of Destiny. So, but still, I stand by my 2.5 out of 5 star ranking. And yeah, so yeah, that was Dial of Destiny. The very last movie I saw before I came to Micronesia very last movie I saw in theaters was Barbie. I kind of did the switcheroo. I was dressed for Oppenheimer. I dressed in all black, but instead went and saw Barbie. Barbie had some social commentary. It definitely had some social commentary on being a woman in society, being a woman in the real world. Margot Robbie was perfectly cast to play Barbie. Ryan Gosling is Ken. It's like, yeah, there's there's that scene where Barbie tells Ken how he's more like how he can exist on his own. He's more than just an accessory. He's more than just Barbie's accessory. It's like, oh, it's always Barbie and Ken. It's like Barbie tells Ken, it's like, look, you can be your own person, be your own man, have your own life, have your own interests, And I think that a lot of times, and I've kind of talked about this, like you can go listen to any of my reviews from the Change Your Life series, listen to any of them, particularly, I would say though, Fight Club and Crazy Stupid Love. Listen to those two episodes that I've done in the past. I think a lot of men today are kind of lost. Maybe we don't know. Maybe a lot of men today, don't have their own lives, don't know how to live their own lives, don't know how to exist in society. They don't know how to exist in society. I definitely think that traditional masculine values are under attack. And what's not helpful is for little boys, is for boys and young men to hear this, feminist agenda, this feminist propaganda that like, oh, the future is female. And, it's like being told that the future is female, being told that pretty much like traditional masculine roles, that a man trying his best, that working out is toxic, that a man who has drive, who has ambition, a man who protects himself, who protects the ones that he loves, is considered toxic. So yeah, I think the movie Barbie deals with the question of identity, and yeah, there's some kind of jabs at the real world versus the fantasy world. The opening of the film kind of reminded me of Don't Worry, Darling, or Get Out. having a fantasy world and then the real world. And so there was that whole like duality. The acting was amazing. Issa Rae is great in this movie. I mean, everyone from Issa Rae to Simu Liu, Kingsley Benadir, Margot Robbie, the aforementioned Margot Robbie, Kate McKinnon, America Ferrera, all phenomenal performances, phenomenal. And Ryan Gosling as Ken goes to the real world and realizes that like the world is run by men, and so I can understand the social satire, and I can understand like the whole message about equality and all that. It's like, yeah, I personally now I wouldn't call myself a feminist per se. I call myself as someone who maybe supports gender equality and believes that if we all kind of took a step back and maybe tuned out all the propaganda, tuned out all the politics and the propaganda and like all, the media and the agendas that are pushed in these films. And it's ironic that I say that as someone who like reviews films, and just kind of looked inward and on ourselves and took personal responsibility, men and women took personal responsibility for our own actions, for the actions of ourselves and not the actions of everyone else. And didn't blame the other side, didn't blame everyone on the other side for the actions of a few. I'll admit there are things that, us men do that I don't agree with. There's things that men have said and done that I don't agree with and that we need to improve on. And I think the same is true for women. All right. There's things that we both need to work on. All right. But at the end of the day, the only thing you really have control over is yourself. The only person's actions that you really have control over are your own. Yeah, it's like J. Cole said in his song "High for Hours." He had a verse where he talked about like revolution and how like, is revolution really the answer? It's like you go from being the oppressed to then being the oppressor to then oppressing others, because it's a vicious cycle. So what's the point in letting you take over when you know exactly what you're going to do? The only real revolution happens right inside of you. That's the only real revolution is going to happen right inside of you, and you taking responsibility for your actions. I mean, Marcus Aurelius. Marcus Aurelius. He was one of the 5 good Roman emperors, but he was also a Stoic philosopher. He had this idea of the circle of control, and identify your circle of control. The only things that we really have control over are our reactions to outside events. You have no control over outside events, things that happen outside of you. Only thing that you can control is your reaction, your thoughts, right? Your thoughts, your words, your actions, your reactions. That's all you have control over. So, and that's not the agenda that was pushed in Barbie. But overall, I still think it was a fun movie. 6.5 out of 10. Yeah. Nice popcorn film. All on the summer box office. I'll briefly, before we end this broadcast, I will briefly talk about some of the recent movies that I saw on different streaming platforms. Starting with Netflix, I recently watched the movie Heart of Stone, and I even posted about it on Instagram for those of you who follow me on Instagram at Cobbs _corner_podcast. I posted about Heart of Stone. Gal Gadot, yeah, I think it's Gal Gadot, yeah, Gal Gadot in a spy thriller. It was a nice little like Mission Impossible styles, like Mission Impossible meets like Citadel, the series on Amazon Prime. Citadel meets. I forget exactly what I said on Instagram, but it was like Citadel meets like Fast and Furious meets like Mission Impossible. Um, yeah, I mean, I think that's pretty much the most like first act, the introduction has you hooked, and it's just total nonstop. Well, it's not nonstop action. Like there's some dialogue and some plot twists, and there's like the sympathetic villain, the villain who has like justified motives. In my opinion, the best kind of villain, the villain who has justified motives. And yeah, it's actually like one of the best like spy thrillers that I've seen in a long time. I think it's a movie that really really is tailored to its audience. It's like if you're the kind of person who likes spy thrillers, who likes James Bond films, who likes Mission Impossible movies, who likes, spy movies. You like those movies? You're gonna like Harder Stuff. Yeah. So yeah. Solid spy thriller. I give it like 8. I give it a 8 out of 10. There's a series on Netflix, Painkiller. Yeah, Painkiller, which is based on a true story. This is now some of the locations and names are fictionalized for either for dramatic effect or to protect those who were involved. But yeah, Painkiller, it's about OxyContin and how it was a drug back in I think it was back in the 90s, like the 90s, early 2000s. It was a drug that Purdue Pharma and big pharma, these big pharmaceutical companies were pushing this drug out to the masses. But this drug, it was very addictive. Many people died. People started having withdrawal from it. Once they were off of it, they started having withdrawal, and people were snorting it. People were crushing it up and snorting it like cocaine. It was awful. These people should be ashamed of themselves. They should be ashamed of themselves. I definitely think that you should not be dependent on any one medication to live. There's no substitute for the proper diet, proper exercise. Okay, proper diet. Drugs, whether they be prescribed, legal or illegal, it's not the way to go. Opioids, there's the whole opioids epidemic going on in the United States. It's very, 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 very serious. Very, very, very serious times we're living in. Prescription drugs, many of these drugs are addictive, and these companies knew exactly what they were doing. They're literally killing people. Innocent people. So I think, diet and exercise. It's not a cure-all, all right? If you are going to take any of these prescription drugs, make sure that you're taking them in the proper dosages, and that goes for any over-the-counter meds, any supplements as well, supplements like for working, for those of us who work out, any supplements, including creatine, make sure you're taking it in the proper dosages, because you go over that, and there may not be a way back from it. So my heart goes out to anyone and everyone who has been affected by opioid use. Those who have lost loved ones to this opioids epidemic. Those who are casualties of this epidemic as well. So check out Painkiller and spread the news about Big Pharma. Never stop fighting for what you believe in. On to Max. Max, I started watching, there's a samurai trilogy. It's a Kurosawa samurai trilogy from the 1950s. I watched the first movie in the trilogy, Musashi Miyamoto. It's about these two Japanese men who leave their village. They leave their village. They become samurai, and then at the end of the movie, one of them is given the title of Musashi Miyamoto. They're from the Musashi village, I think. So yeah, they're from the Musashi village. And so I watched the first movie. I'm gonna watch the second one and let you guys know my thoughts. But yeah, that's been a couple of the movies I've seen recently. I also just yesterday rewatched Armageddon. And I had a slight Mandela effect with this movie, and I'll explain why. Because I first saw this movie in 2016, and at that time, I hadn't yet seen The Incredible Hulk, which starred Liv Tyler. Liv Tyler's also in Armageddon. And I hadn't seen a whole lot of Ben Affleck's movies. I hadn't really started to recognize Ben Affleck as Ben Affleck. I hadn't started to recognize him and put like a name to the face. So, but now that I've seen, Liv Tyler and Ben Affleck in other movies and other projects, I now rewatching Armageddon just yesterday. I'm now starting to notice that, I noticed that they're in this film, and I had to kind of like do a double take. I'm like, do I remember seeing them the first time? So, Mandela effect. Armageddon. It's one of Michael Bay's better films. It is from 1998. Some of the visual effects, some of the graphics looked kind of dated-ish. It's like you can tell that it's a movie from the late 90s. But overall, I do still think that it's a great film, and not just because Bruce Willis is the main character. It kind of puts things into perspective about like how 65 million years ago the dinosaurs met their end. There's an asteroid that hit the Earth, wiped them out. It's a very sobering, very somber, kind of unsettling thought that will happen again at some point. That yes, at some point, a meteor will hit the world at some point. We don't know when. We do not know when. But every world religion, Christianity included, I'm teaching at a Christian school, has their own version of the apocalypse, their own version of the end of days, or in Christianity, we call it the second coming of Christ, the day of judgment, and Armageddon, which I think the word Armageddon is only mentioned once in the Bible, I think. The end of all things. So, and for years, people have tried to predict doomsday, everything from Y2K to 2012 to 2012, COVID-19. So it also says that nobody knows the day nor the hour that the world will end. All right, nobody knows the day nor the hour. Armageddon. It's a solid film. It's a solid film. I think Michael Bay's recent films, like I've really just stopped watching. Michael Bay's recent films, like his Transformers movies. I mean, yikes. Original trilogy, I like Dark of the Moon. Dark of the Moon was my favorite. Age of Extinction was not a real movie. it was a CGI nightmare. So I gave up on Transformers after that. But yeah, Michael Bay, he had a prime. He had some good movies, but not lately. Armageddon. So yeah, that was Armageddon. Yeah, classic, maybe even a cult classic. It's definitely one of my favorites. I wouldn't put it in my top 10. I put it in maybe like my top 15, top 20 films ever. It's crazy to think that the movie turns 25 this year. The movie came out 25 years ago, in 1998. Yeah, that's Armageddon. Bruce Willis had hair. That's how old the movie is. Last and kind of least, Green Lantern. I finally watched Green Lantern yesterday because I saw that it was on Max. And Screen Crush recently did a video on Green Lantern on how like Green Lantern actually made the DC EU better. Green Lantern, like it was supposed to be the kickoff of the DC Extended Universe back in 2011. But there was just so much behind the scenes, like reshoots and rewrites during production. In its early days of production, it did suffer from a writer's strike. There was a writer's strike going on in its early years of development. My guess is they're probably referring to maybe the 2007, 2008 WGA strike. It was like a 3-month writer's strike from like November 2007 to February 2008. Unless there was another one after that one. Yeah, unless there was another one in like, I don't know, 2009 or 10. But it didn't. But we did get Angela Bassett as a version of Amanda Waller, and then Angela Bassett got to play Queen Ramonda in Black Panther. Taika Waititi is in this film. Taika Waititi, who went on to direct the best Thor movie, Thor Ragnarok. Ryan Reynolds, Ryan Reynolds just brings his own like charisma and charm to every role he does. But Ryan Reynolds as Green Lantern. Yeah. Ryan Reynolds, he actually met Blake Lively on the set of Green Lantern. So the two of them, they're married with, I forget how many kids they have. 1, maybe 2. So yeah, I can totally see where Ryan Airy is coming from when he says how when he says how Green Lantern fixed the DCEU and made the DCEU better. I totally see what you're saying. Overall, I just give the movie a 4 out of 10 for its like half done plot. It's terrible pacing, difficult to follow story, really just all over the place and just kind of goofy story, kind of just goofy plot, goofy story. Animated suits, like, I've heard a ton of jokes about it. They made fun of that movie in Deadpool. If this movie never flopped, then we never would have gotten Deadpool. If this movie actually did well, then the only version of Deadpool we would have gotten was Ryan Reynolds in X-Men Origins Wolverine. Thanks. But yeah, Green Lantern, don't watch it more than like 2 or 3 times. Yeah, the movie overall is just terrible. And it actually had a decent director, Mark Campbell. So, well, that is all for this week's episode of, the very first episode of Talk Time with Morgan Cobbs. If you liked today's episode and found it informative, then be sure to like it and share it wherever you get your podcast. Subscribe to the YouTube channel. And wherever you're listening from, give us a 5-star, give us a five-star review on all listening platforms. Follow me on Instagram at follow me on Instagram at real_mechanical_ and follow Cobbs Corner on Instagram at Cobbs_corner_podcast. Follow us on TikTok at Cobbs Corner Podcast, all lowercase, no spaces. If you don't have social media, you can always feel free to email us with your questions, your suggestions, comments, concerns, death threats. Email us at cobbscornerpodcast@gmail.com. Turn on your post notifications so you get notified when we post new episodes, and definitely tune into Talk Time with Morgan Cobbs every morning at 8 a.m. Chuk Standard Time. That's 6 o'clock p.m. Eastern Standard Time, live on YouTube. That's all I got today. As always, I'll talk to all of you in the next episode. Hope you guys enjoyed your stay here at Cobbs Corner. Peace.